The first thing we talked about in this section was finding rate of change, and there's a couple ways you can do this. Now remember, rate of change and slope are the exact same thing. You do them exactly the same way. They sort of have the exact same formula. We just talk about them in two sort of different ways. So what we have here is we have a graph and we have a table. So there's two different ways you can do this. First, for the graph, anytime you have a graph, to find rate of change or to find slope, you can just count rise over run between the two dots that you have on the graph. So you always start with the one that's the furthest to the left, and then you count up or down first. Now, to get up here to this dot, clearly I'm going to count up, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I counted up 4, so my rise would be 4. And then my run, which would be on bottom, once you get up to 4 here, you count over to the other dot. So 1, 2, 3. So my run would be 3. So my rate of change would be 4 over 3. Or if you actually want to do that as a decimal, well, it's a repeating decimal. So we're not going to write it as a decimal. We're going to leave it as a fraction, 4 over 3. Now for a table, to do a table, you're going to use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the change in y over the change in x. And this is the same formula that we use for slope. And what you're going to do is you need to pick two pairs of numbers on your table. I always like to use first and last. The reason for that is because sometimes they ask you for the average rate of change. And if they ask you for the average rate of change, you want to use the first one and the last one. So I have my two y's, I have my two x's. So now I'm going to set up my equation. So I have y2, which is 26, minus y1, which is negative 6, over x2, which is 11, minus x1, which is 3. Now up here, two negatives make a positive, so it would be 26 plus 6, which would be 32. And then on bottom, be 11 minus 3, which is 8. And then we simplify, or we divide, so 32 divided by 8 would just come out to be 4. So the rate of change would be 4. So that's how you find rate of change. Next, let's look at if a function is linear.